Alright, hey guys, this is Shane. I'm going to be teaching you how to use Maya here in order to texture this gun we have here. Pretty much right now you notice that I have the faces and everything else I need pretty much set up into this object with just one single object selected in this current Maya file. This is the Ogpara right now that I want to texture, but as you notice, each one of these faces ends up having its own corresponding UV that exists over here in what we call the UV texture editor. These UVs essentially are what textures are placed onto the model itself. So what we're going to be editing is, if you notice here when I go to object mode and I select the entire object, the UVs are kind of just this giant globally mess of crap right here, and we kind of want to be able to place our textures on there evenly and make them actually be efficient across the whole way. So what we're going to do is we're going to use various different ways of doing mapping onto this object, which will allow us to reset these UVs. So I'm going to start with just the one that I use a lot, which is automatic UV mapping, which is this option right here. It's called the automatic projection, and you'll notice that when you have your mouse over it, it ends up giving you a little explanation down here. So you'll notice down in the bottom left right now that it says automatic projection, and selected faces to be mapped will be automatically mapped. What's different between this one, this one, this one, and this one is that this one essentially maps it from 6 different directions, while this one maps it in a spherical kind of format, while this one is a cylindrical format and this one is a planar format, each of which has their own purpose and use within inside of what we'd be doing. But right now I'm just going to show you how to use the automatic projection, and we're going to actually use the texture editor here in order to screw around with it until we can get it placed perfectly and efficiently. Right now, let me just tell you that what originally my reasons for doing this right now is that since I've completely finished this model inside of Maya, as far as I want to go with it, this is pretty much the lowest res that I'm going to be at. What I'm going to be doing with it is I'm going to essentially, this right now is only 2,914 triangles if I was to triangulate it right now, which is a pretty good amount for being the kind of model that you'll see quite often. Usually when it comes to video games, you want to try to have as low poly count as possible. That way it's more efficient on the engine and it can render faster, as well as not cause any frame rate loss. But when it comes to something that the player is going to continuously see nonetheless, it's best to have as high a definition as possible. Now, well, this is not obviously as high definition as I can get. I'm going to actually take it into ZBrush, which I'll use to create my normal maps and displacement maps for, which will then bump it up and allow me to be working in the billions of polygons, which essentially will give me the high definition that I want inside of this. So pretty much right now we have this gun already set up. Now it comes down to editing these UVs. So I'm going to show you how you can get to the UV editor, texture editor we have right here. There's a series of different ways you can do that. You can either click on this button here, which is the texture coordinate mapping view, which will pop up the window. Now if you have your shelf deactivated, like I do many times, or you just can't seem to find that button, you want to make sure first off that you're underneath polygons. And then once you're underneath polygons, you can come up here to, I believe it's, let's see, it changes all the time. This is a different version of Maya I haven't used before. Okay, here we go. Create UVs essentially is where you want to be selecting. And then essentially underneath, oh, it's edit UVs. Edit UVs, UV texture editor. I'll pop it up for you. Then I also believe that you can find it over here underneath rendering editors, and then also UV texture editor lies somewhere inside here. Oh, general editors probably. Yeah, in there. Oh, there you go, UV texture editor. So there's 3 different ways you can end up opening up the UV texture editor. Once we're inside this though, you notice now that we have this kind of weird setup of buttons now, as well as this grid system that looks very familiar to what we've been working on. But the difference with this is that it's completely a 2-dimensional grid. You'll notice that I can't actually spin around. I can pan in and pan the camera as well as zoom in and zoom out, but I can't actually rotate it in 360 degrees. That's because UVs essentially are two-dimensional surfaces on the model. So what that means is, if you notice that each one of these faces, granted they may be manipulated in 3-dimensional space, but if I was to select the face, you'll notice though that when I have a single